A pretty quick and easy cornbread stuffing if you're looking for something different, or if you just want to update what you already have. This is a great one with cornbread, apple, sausage. It should be on your Thanksgiving table. Let's make it. Stuffing can take different forms every year. Sometimes I like to switch it up and do a cornbread stuffing. And you know, cornbread is really pretty easy. What this one starts with is good cornbread. So I used my recipe on my website for cornbread, baked it in a 9x13, and then just dried it out in the oven. I always think it's better, whether it's bread or cornbread, to dry it out in the oven so it dries all the way through and not just the outside. When you let it sit at room temperature, it doesn't really dry all the way through. Now, cornbread's always gonna be more crumbly, so when we put this together, it does lose some of its shape. That's okay. We're starting here like we would with any stuffing, really. Onion, celery. I'm finishing chopping up my celery into somewhat like of a larger dice. I think a cornbread stuffing, it can kind of go a lot of ways. It doesn't have as many variations sometimes, but this one has a little pop of flavor with some sweetness added to it through some apple and everything else. But we're gonna start by cooking it with the flavor. And what does that mean? Butter. So I have butter on the stove. And what I'm doing, I just melted it into a skillet. I'm gonna throw in all of my celery and my onion. Now, it's a lot of butter because guess what? That butter also is gonna get soaked into the cornbread at the end, and you want all of that moisture and all of that flavor. So I'm gonna let this slowly just saute, and while it's sauteing, I'm gonna of course sprinkle it with some salt. Always do this at every level because you need to season as you go. And some pepper. And we're gonna just chop up some sage and some thyme to put in there. So for the sage, I just put leaves over top of each other, roll them up. You can use dried sage too. My thing is, I still usually am able to either save it or bring it in from the garden this time of year. We've had kind of an abnormally warm fall and I have plenty of sage that hasn't gone dormant. So I'm gonna use all of that and just chop it up. It's gonna go in there. Now with thyme, instead of taking all the leaves off, I just throw them in the whole sprig. And then as it's sauteing, some of the leaves fall off and then I just pull those stems out later. So we're gonna throw the sage and the thyme right in here. We're gonna let all this saute together and we'll move on. The onion and the celery are softened and nicely sauteed. We don't want color on them, we just want them to be softened. And now I have some garlic that I just chopped up. I like to add the garlic towards the end. You know, when you overcook garlic before you add a lot of other ingredients, it can burn or it can turn bitter. So we're gonna add it right now. And with the garlic, I can find sometimes cornbread stuffing, actually stuffing in general, to need a little kick. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of red pepper flakes. Now this is totally optional, but I think it's needed. So let's just stir that in. And you just wanna do it until it's fragrant. It takes like 30 seconds, minute tops. Instantly you smell the garlic, and so you know that's cooking and that's what you want. And you can see already our thyme stems are doing what we need, so we're gonna let those keep sauteing in there. Now comes the real flavor impact, and you can leave this out if you want vegetarian, but sausage. I'm gonna add in some ground sausage. Now, obviously, your heat level with the red pepper flakes could change depending on your sausage. If you wanted to use a spicy sausage, you could do that. But what I'm gonna do is let the sausage now just cook in here. And you're gonna think, well, sausage has fat in it. Why are you doing it with butter? The butter and all this adds up to the liquid we need for our stuffing. So we're just gonna break this into small pieces and let it brown. The sausage is browned. We're gonna let that just sit there for a little bit, and we're getting some other things ready. So here I have some apples. And apples are kind of an interesting one, but I think in stuffing, they're really good. I'm using a nice, firm apple. So I actually personally like Honeycrisp, something that's gonna keep its kind of beautiful texture when it roasts. Because the thing is, I don't want these just to become mush or applesauce in here. I want them to maintain their texture. And yes, I'm leaving the peels on. I like the peel, I like to see the peel, and I like that texture it adds, and beautiful color too. So what the apple does is it adds kind of that sweet tart flavor to this. It adds kind of an interest, which I like too. So here is a bowl, a big bowl. I'm gonna put in all of this cubed and dried cornbread. And like I said, some of that is obviously going to become a little bit more crumbly because that's just the nature of cornbread. I have here a couple eggs. I just like to get them ready by putting them into a bowl. So egg in a stuffing like this, it just helps bind. It helps hold everything together and give it a little bit more structure. Without it, sometimes it can be a little loose. So I'm just gonna take those and just quickly beat them up. It just helps it incorporate easier if you do this beforehand, as opposed to just throw them in there without being mixed. I think beating it is actually really essential. So now on top of this, we're gonna take out all of those thyme leaves. They did their job. Just take them out. And it's really nice that you can just take the stems out. And then we're just gonna pour all this on top. Look at that gorgeous, all the butter, all those onions, the celery, the sausage, which is gonna give this so much flavor. Along with this, we're gonna put on our apples. So we're just gonna throw those right over here. The apples to me are just really that, I think everyone that tries this is always like, oh, the apple, that really does something, and it does. It just does something special, especially with the sausage, apple and sausage together. And then we're gonna put on our eggs, one final beat of them. Now, your sausage mixture, when it's hot, just to temper it out, I'm gonna put them over here, and I'm gonna pour my stock right on them, that way you don't have to worry about it. And then our stock, and now we can just mix everything together. So once you have your stock in there, we can just start stirring everything together. Which this is when, yes, it's a mess, but this is why we took the time to dry out that cornbread just like we would have anything else. And as you're doing it, you are gonna notice at first there's some liquid in the bottom. That's normal. All of this cornbread is gonna take a little bit of time to actually soak in all of that stock. And that's what you want. You want it to be just like that right ratio of sauce and liquid to the actual cornbread. So I'm stirring it enough to start noticing that we're getting less and less of that in the bottom. So as we sit and we stir, it keeps soaking it up. So I have a buttered dish back here, and the reason I butter it instead of grease it maybe with spray or something, adds flavor. If you can always just add a little bit, it's gonna make a difference. And now with any of that residual stock, we're gonna pour this right into here. You know, with different stuffings, dressings, my grandma used to make, and she would always fret that hers wasn't good enough or the liquid wasn't right. You know, grandma's was always amazing, and no matter how much you would tell her, she wouldn't believe it. But that's the thing. I think we fret too much and don't realize it's gonna be good. It's gonna be amazing. And it's gonna be exactly what you want. So I'm making sure that all this is somewhat even, nothing perfect. And if you want, you can take a few pieces of apple, put them kind of strategically where you wanna see them when it's done, because I like to see the apple. I think that's the nice part of it, is to see some of that and have it somewhat even. And then look all around, it's beautiful, it's perfect. Now we're gonna pop this in the oven, we're gonna let it bake. That's cornbread stuffing. Here's the cornbread stuffing. I let it cool out of the oven 10 to 15 minutes just to cool off a little bit so I don't burn myself as much, but you can see it's beautiful. It gets golden and crispy on top on some of those edges, but nice and puffed from the egg and everything getting together. I mean, this is just for a change up from maybe what you usually have. Or if you want a completely gluten-free stuffing, you could do a gluten-free cornbread. You don't have to worry about it. But what I like to see here is, notice how some of it is, it's slightly moist. It's not wet, it's not watery. There's no moisture pooling, that's what you want. The cornbread soaks in all that moisture. That's the point of a good stuffing. And then the egg really helps give it structure. So this is just, to me, a great option if you're looking for something different, or if this is what you're used to, because some people, this is all they would ever have. That's delicious. What I love is that cornbread, you actually get some of the flavor of that cornmeal. And that works really well with that apple sweetness, because there's a slight sweetness in corn, kind of that cornmeal cornbread. And then the sausage has a little bit of spice, along with the spice I upped in the chili flake. You know, I will always add a little bit more spice if I can. But then it all comes together in those Thanksgiving warming herbs with the sage and the thyme. I think it's delicious. I think it's a great option for a side dish if you're looking for something different, or if you're just looking to update what you already have, it's a great option. So what do I hope you do with this video? I hope you share it around, and I hope it brings people together. When you share these, of course, it helps me, but it helps everyone see this is doable. And the point of Thanksgiving is to make it doable, make it accessible, make it easy, make it stress-free. And that's what these recipes are designed to do. Check my website, wiseguide.com, for this recipe. All my other recipes for Thanksgiving and beyond are on there. Until next time, have something fun, but more importantly, have everyone you love together, because without them, there's no meal.